Having said that, let's get this show on the road, and I'm very happy to introduce our very first speaker. That is Ksenia Gusarova, who's coming to us from Moscow, Russia. She is a research fellow at the Institute for Advanced Studies in the Humanities with the Russian State University for the Humanities, where she, among other things, leads an interdisciplinary research seminar titled "The Texts of Fashion." Her PhD thesis discussed cosmetic cultures in late imperial Russia as an intersection of fashionable aesthetics and medical concerns. And apart from the cultural history of makeup, Ksenia is interested in other areas of appearance management, such as posing for photographs and the discourses of illusion and deceit surrounding them. And she's going to give us a wonderful paper titled "Empty Jars and Progressive Narratives, Exhibiting Historical Cosmetics." So, Ksenia, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Steve. And a great thanks to Heather and Teresa for putting together this amazing events in which it is a great pleasure and honor for me to be a participant. And I'm really looking forward to today's panels and discussions. As you can see from my title, my talk is going to address the aspect of dress and dress cultures, which is under-researched and underrepresented in scholarly and museum contexts, namely cosmetics. And when I say cosmetics, I mean all things from makeup to different kinds of creams, powders, and toiletries. And compared to clothes, which have a very rich history of collecting and displaying in both public museums and personal collections and archives, and also compared to perfumes, and this is a topic I will explore in more detail today. Cosmetics have traditionally been marginalized and very strongly underrepresented. And we might think that to some extent this is logical because of the immaterial and intangible nature of historical cosmetics. Whether they are used, they disappear, but when they are not used, they eventually also disappear and disintegrate. And there is no way we can physically access cosmetics of, say, Victorian age. But perfumes are very similar in this respect. And although up to a century old fragrances can be sometimes preserved or can be restored. Still, the majority of historical perfumes are as intangible, inaccessible, immaterial as cosmetics. However, as I shall attempt to show, perfume bottles, that is, have been assigned a somewhat more prestigious place in museum collections and displays compared to cosmetics. So I think rather than focusing on the topic of like preservation and physical accessibility of artifacts, we should address the questions of what is at stake in preserving and exhibiting cosmetics, and whose interests gets represented or don't get represented actually, and what is deemed worthy of preservation, of display, by whom and why. And in my research, I have come across several narratives, several logics of exhibiting historical cosmetics, and particularly perfumes. I'll always address this disbalance between these types of products or cultural artifacts. And the first logic that I've identified is that of a treasury, what I call treasury. So particularly for medieval and early modern items, what we see emphasized is craftsmanship, as in this medieval on the left hand and Baroque on the right hand pomanders from the V&A and the Walters Museum respectively. So pomanders were those tiny, not so tiny containers where people would store some fragrance substances, carrying them around both to enhance their physical presence and to counteract some unpleasant smells, and also to fend off miasma, the unhealthy airs or substances, to fend off plague, as was believed by the medical professionals of the era. So here again, we see this emphasis on perfumed substances, and also on these beautiful decorative objects, which are presented as treasures, very often in the context of Kunstkammer, this cabinet of curiosities, where starting from the Renaissance onwards, those fantastic objects were assembled from some natural rarities and curiosities, and to amazing objects of crafts, and the combination of the two. So here we can also see some pomanders bottom right, and occasionally such objects would also include powder boxes, so something related to cosmetics, but we almost never see them in association with the bodies to which they were attached, to the people who were actually using them, carrying them around. So what we see here is a kind of a typology of objects. So they are placed together with other things of the same type, and we are to admire them for their beauty, for their curiosity, for the mastery of their craftsmanship. This is a kind of a disembodied experience of viewing, where objects are presented as such, and outside of any connection to living bodies and fashion practices. This, in more modern eras, we can find some kind of continuation of this logic when cosmetic and particularly perfume bottles and jars are inscribed within the history of design. So here, for instance, you can see on the left a cologne bottle designed in 1911 by the famous Russian avant-garde artist Kazimir Malevich. And on the right, you can see a René Lalique designed bottle. So very often these perfume bottles are collectibles, and it's funny that people who collect them often identify as collectors of perfumes, historical perfumes. So actually they just collect those empty bottles for their aesthetic value. Again, cosmetic objects are usually more unassuming or less ambitious in their design, but still sometimes they are viewed and they are represented in the context of art history and design history, and definitely some of them more than the others reflect the aesthetic of their era, Art Nouveau and Neo-Rococo aesthetics. Here we finally come to some idea, at least, of embodiment in the images of the lovely women who are portrayed on these jars, on this packaging. Perhaps this connection to the aesthetic, to the history of art and design, is even more pronounced in those soap bottles, soap boxes I'm now showing. But anyway, the focus is on design, on the artistic qualities of the packaging, rather than the often absent and inaccessible contents thereof. Also, packaging of cosmetics and perfumes is mobilized very often to represent the business histories, the history of industrial development, of emergence and development of production of perfumes and cosmetics. And here I'm showing a couple of show boxes from a museum of a Russian firm, which was established in the 19th century, and then it was nationalized in the Soviet time. So in the post-Soviet era, it was particularly important to practice this invention of tradition to show the continuity over different periods and how this particular company developed. So they opened their own museum in the early 21st century. And here is what it looks like. So we see those numerous bottles and jars and boxes and containers, again, mainly of perfumes, but also of powders and creams and items like that, which are exhibited as the evidence of progress. And these are those progress narratives I put into the title of my presentation, because the idea is that of democratization of cosmetic culture, of its growing accessibility to wider numbers of consumers, and of the products themselves becoming safer, more effective, more attractive. So this whole story fits very well into the 19th century progress narratives. And perhaps this is one of the reasons for the marginalization of cosmetics, because namely in the 19th century, cosmetics were not meant to exist at all. So this was an area of like silencing and something unacceptable that was denied cultural respectability and acceptability. And even more interestingly, these progress narratives are held up not only by those corporate museums of smaller or bigger cosmetic firms existing nowadays, but also in wider context. For instance, here you see a fragment of display in the Museum of Moscow, where again we see those histories of beauty companies narrated and shown as very important pages in the development of the city and in the city history. And again, production is emphasized over consumption and completely disembodied and dissociated from lived fashionable and everyday practices. And to some extent, this also matches the way cosmetic cultures, historical cosmetic cultures have been treated in research literature. And here are some of the lovely books that I'm dedicated to this topic, which although they show very complex issues of representations and imagining of gender and race and class in connection to beauty culture, primarily focus on the business histories, which is explicitly stated in some of the titles, in others less so. Still, that has been the main focus of research and also of exhibiting historical cosmetics. And on the other hand, also another recent example I've encountered of representing historical, again, perfumes mainly, but also cosmetics, is in a recent museum dedicated to a particular district of Moscow, where in the early Soviet period, there has been very active urban redevelopment and restructuring of everyday life. And this contemporary museum addresses the changing patterns of life and lifestyles in this place. So these window cases, they show these artifacts from late imperial and Soviet periods all mixed together. And the logic here is what I identify as urban archaeology, particularly visible here, again, with a focus on perfume bottles and kind of a typology of these objects, especially on the right. You see them placed alongside beer bottles and chemists' bottles and jars, and we also have perfumes and cosmetics. So the contents of those, the former contents of those bottles and jars is irrelevant. What is relevant are the material remains, which are presented archaeologically and typologically. And an interesting alternative to those approaches can be seen in theatrical museums. For instance, this image comes from a Moscow museum of a famous Russian fin de siècle dramatic actress Maria Yermolova, where her dressing table is reconstructed, and we see this mirror and those perfume bottles again, and some cosmetic items which are associated with the nature of her art and her embodiment of different characters and changing of her appearance. And in this particular context, cosmetics occasionally have a chance of becoming more important, and they come to symbolize the actor's profession, the actor's art, and to some extent they come to symbolize the absent actor as well. And perhaps this is better visible in this wonderful image from St. Petersburg Museum of the famous operatic bass singer Fyodor Shaliapin, where again we see his dressing table with a wig and some perfume bottles and brushes and other items helping to prepare for the role, but no cosmetics in this case. And we can think about this gendered nature of representation of female and male actors respectively. But what I particularly like about this display is, for instance, this hat hanging in the corner and other items assembled so that they suggest the presence of the actor, and also the use of space where the photographs of him in character look out of the mirror. So this space of imagination is fully employed here. And I would like to argue that the relationship between a body, the person, and their clothes is very much similar to the relationship between this absent contents of perfume and cosmetic containers and the containers themselves. So actually, we don't have any real access to history, to these past ages and to the people who inhabited them. But those traces that we have allow us to indulge in our journey of imagination. And in my opinion, cosmetics and those marginalized body practices attached to them should not be an exception to that. And to close my presentation, I would like to address an example of most recent presentation of items related to cosmetic cultures, and that is namely in online spaces. And my examples come from the museum of a French manufacturer, Dorin. And again, we can see this logic of production, of industrial development underlying these attempts at preservation and at display of historical artifacts. What I like about these items and the way they are presented on their website, and the following image, this and the following images come from Dorin Museum website, is how these high quality, high resolution photographs allow us to at the same time access the materiality, or have the impression of accessing the materiality of these objects, and also indulging in our fantasies about them. And in these particular examples I have selected, I would like to emphasize visual and sensory parallels which these objects seem to invite. For instance, the parallel in the shape of this powder box and the head box the girl on the cover is carrying. And in the other example, it is the very process of powdering the face with its sensory associations, which are prompted by the image. And in this image of man's aftershave powder, I would like to emphasize the issue of preservation of the object, where we see these numerous losses and not such a great condition of the artifact actually. So it doesn't seem new, but this very texture of the object brings us closer to it, allowing us to experience its materiality, and through it the materiality of history and of those practices. And my final example is of this powder case, which is photographed in such a way as to invite us to try and peek into the mirror, and again catching us in this play of surfaces, of reflections, of half real and half imaginary objects. And I think that paradoxically, maybe the internet environment nowadays and the current technologies can allow us to have better online access to the history of cosmetics, and to get involved with its meanings and with its materiality even, than the old-fashioned museum displays, which definitely will need to be reconsidered. Thank you so much for your attention.